Hello everybody, welcome back to Hard Enduro Media, episode 3 of Basic Maintenance, and we're back with the 300 TPI, the 2019 bike. It's my bike with 40 hours on the clock, and so far this bike has been faultless, it really has. It's a stock engine. I've not felt the need to carry out any modifications like an ECU flashing, put a high compression head on, do an air screw mode, any of that. It's just totally stock. And at the moment it suits me fine, it really does, no issues at all. So where are we now? Well, in the first two episodes, episode 1 we looked at the front of the bike after we'd done an event. We cleaned the bike off, we got it dried, and then we looked at cleaning or doing some detailed cleaning of the front end, making sure that for when we go out on the next ride there isn't dirt still in places of what's going to cause additional wear on the bike. In episode 2 we looked at the central area of the bike. We had the seat off, the tank off, looked at the electrics, airbox, and what we're doing really is getting to know the ins and outs of this bike, how this thing works, getting to know where things are. If we do come across a problem, we can look at things quickly. We can look at the fuse box quickly, we can look at relays, we can look at injector plugs. We know how things come off and are put back on. It really is basic stuff is this, and if you've got one of these bikes, you've got to be prepared to put that effort in to look after it, and you should have as much fun looking after the bike as you do riding the bike, but hopefully riding time will outweigh the maintenance time. In this episode now we're into the sort of a rear area of the bike now, you know, the swing arm, the wheels, etc. So that's what we're going to do now, and get into that and have a look at what we've done in the last sort of couple of days. The first thing that I did was put the bike on the stand with a tarpaulin on the ground underneath just to catch any dirt, and then we started looking at cleaning the chain using some nylon brushes. Don't use wire brushes, a nice soft nylon brush, some maintenance spray, WD-40 or similar, just to sort of break that dirty oil down. You can even use diesel or kerosene to clean chains as well, because it doesn't harm the O-rings. We got the chain clean, got it dried off. I didn't lube it up because that was going to be the last sort of thing that I would do at the end of the cleaning session. I then took the back wheel out, and I also took the mud flap off at the base of the airbox, and also cleaned underneath the mudguard area. Now I've heard people complain about water getting splashed up into the airbox through the drain hole at the bottom, so what I've done is I've just put a piece of foam in there, a coarse piece of foam, just so it allows any water that does get in there to drain out. So that prevents that splashing effect you can get sometime of water going up into the airbox. I then started cleaning the swinging arm down, and also having a look at the chain block as well. Now the chain block was still quite dirty, even though we pressure washed it off a couple of times. There's still dirt trapped in there, so if you can, you know, with the wheel off is the best time to be doing it. Get in there with some brushes like the brushes that I've got, some thin wire brushes, lift the chain up, and you can get some WD-40 into there or similar, and wash all that dirt out from inside the chain block, and inspect the chain block. What's your chain block like? Is it worn? Is it nearly worn through? You know, or is it in good condition? Mine's in good condition still. The BRP Motos chain block, I can say it's a fantastic piece of kit. Really, it's really hard wearing, and you can see the scuffs it's had on the side there. That's from Sea to Sky. But the structural integrity of it is still there. It's still doing its job, and it'll last quite some time. I'm hoping to get at least 100 hours out of this thing. So that is the BRP Motos chain block. Now, one of the things to look out for is play in the PDS bush underneath the bottom of the shock, the bottom bush. Again, the best time to check that is when the wheel's off. You just put your thumb against the base of the shock and the swing arm, just bridge that gap with your thumb, and move the swing arm and see if there's any play. You'll be able to feel it straight away. Another thing as well to look out for is play in the top bush of the shock absorber. You can put a finger in like so against the top of the shock and the frame, and just pull on the back wheel, just up and down. If you feel any play there, then you know that you need a top bush in your shock absorber. Another thing to look out for as well is play in the swing arm bearings. So take hold of the swing arm at the end and try and pull it side to side, the horizontal plane, see if there's any movement there. And I would also periodically take the swinging arm out and re-grease those bearings. I've got a bike that's 11 years old, it's got the original swing arm bearings in still from new, and they've lasted because I take it out periodically and re-grease them. The seal's still in good condition, and it's just that maintenance what's kept them going that long. I've seen bikes which have been 2 years old which have had 2 sets of swing arm bearings in. What's that tell you? Is that the operator what's doing something wrong, or is there a fault with the bike? I'd probably say it's the operator what's not maintaining the bike or looking after the bike as he should be doing. A small amount of grease every now and again can save you a lot of money, so that's just something to think about if you're going to keep your bike for a long time. The next thing that I did was I checked the back brake. I took the brake out, split the caliper from the carrier, and checked the slide pins. Now there was a bit of resistance with the slide pins, so I cleaned the seals, cleaned the side pins up, and re-greased them just to make sure they were nice and fresh and they were moving freely. I then ran a wire brush over the brake pads and had a look at those. The brake pads are still good to go. Also look at your piston as well in the caliper, make sure the piston's in good order. If you are the type of rider that tends to drag the back brake quite a lot, the piston will get hot and the piston in the caliper can start to break up, so it's something to look out for. So the back brake's in good order at the moment, as are the pads. Now those pads that you can see have done 40 hours. There's lots of wear left in the brake pads. They are the original Brembo brake pads. The closest thing what comes to them in quality, I would say, is the KTM pad. I've tried all sorts of brake pads over years, various makes, and I always find the KTM ones seem to last the longest, although they are a little bit more expensive. In the long run, they are well worth it, I think. I then looked at the rear wheel spindle, got that all nicely cleaned, and also cleaned the nut as well. Just make sure you get all the dirt out of the threads on the spindle before you put the nut back on, and also clean the nut if it's really dirty on the inside. Just get some spray in there just to break that dirt down, and wash it out, blow it out with an airline if you can. So we then looked at the back wheel. We took the back wheel into the workshop, looked at the bushes, the wheel bushes, and the seals, made sure they were all cleaned up. Just got in there with an old toothbrush and some maintenance spray just to wash any grease away. And also looked at checking the sprocket bolts for tightness and also the disc bolts for tightness as well, made sure they were okay. And after I'd done all that, I then just give the disc a good wash down with some brake cleaner. So having got the back wheel nicely cleaned up, I then put it back in the bike, and those of you that are experienced enough will know to either put a rag or I use a T-bar just to help pull the wheel forward against the stop bolts when you're tightening the axle nut. When it comes to tightening the axle nut, don't over tighten the axle nut, because if you over tighten it, what's going to happen? Your wheel bearings will not last. The specific torque is 80 Newton meters. Now, a lot of guys out there that are quite experienced will be able to manage without a torque wrench. For the inexperienced guys, I would say always try and use a torque wrench, just so you don't over tighten these things. If you're using a standard KTM wheel with the standard KTM bushes in and bearings, you can generally get away with a little bit of over tightness. But if you're using something like a Talon hub, the bushes in there seem to be a little bit softer, and they tend to squash over time if you're over tightening, and that can lead to the spindle seizing in as well. And you might get an instance like this where you have to change the wheel bearings and you can't get the bushes out because they've spread with the over tightening of the axle. While we're talking about axle nuts, if you've got to use a bit of scaffolding pole on the end of your ratchet to undo the nut, then it is too tight. You should be able to undo the nut just with the ratchet and the 27mm. We had a bike in the workshop at Eurotek quite a while ago, and I had to use a similar piece of pipe to undo the back wheel nut with my ratchet, and it must have been at least 200 Newton meters, and surprise, surprise, it wanted new wheel bearings in there. So if you're over tightening the back axle, the wheel bearings will not last very long at all. We then put the side panels back on, we put the fuel tank back on. I always like to use a little bit of maintenance spray on the O-ring for the hose connector, just so it doesn't tear the O-ring when you're clipping those two parts together. Now the KTM TPI bikes have an electric oil pump, and on some occasions the oil pumps have failed and the bikes have seized up. Unfortunately, it does happen. Nothing is totally perfect. So what I like to do with my bike, every time I've sort of washed it or cleaned it, is just to make sure the oil pumps are working properly. And you do that by using the wake up plug, and that plugs into the diagnostic socket on the bike. That's used to prime the oil pump. Now every time I do some maintenance on the bike, I always put the wake up plug in, and that tells me that the oil pump is working. So it gives me a little bit of peace of mind when I go out on my next ride, so I know everything's as it should be. So that's where we are at the moment. The bike is back together, it's up and running, I'm really happy with it. There's still quite a lot of areas we could cover in terms of maintenance, but this basic maintenance series was all about cleaning, and that's what we've done. We've essentially cleaned the bike from the front to the back, just going through everything. We can then go on to the next stage when you're looking at checking your spokes. Does your brake fluid need changing? Your clutch fluid? What's the wear like on your chain and sprockets? If they look like something like this, then they're definitely changing. Bike maintenance, it never ends, it really don't, but that small amount of detail can save you a lot of unnecessary wear and tear in the long term. You've got to be prepared just to get in there and clean things down and just making sure everything's working as it should be working. What's happening next? Well, I've still got the lightweight adventure bike project series to finish. Hopefully we should be doing some filming next week and getting that put together. This coming Sunday, the 21st of June, I'm riding at the Dirt Bike Action event, which is like a stubble cross event at Teesside. And then the week after, I'm going down to Leatherhead to meet up with Carl Venter and Robin Scarry from Technical Enduro Training Skills School. So stay tuned, Hard Enduro Media at Eurotek Ktm. See you soon. Oh, and Lucioli as well, yeah.